These corridors plagued with overgrowth and debris represent a moment in time. A time where players had to learn their role in 4-person dungeons to be effective. A time where you were expected to fail 2 to 3 times in order to progress through to completion. And a time where the second boss of this very dungeon forced the Final Fantasy XIV community to get good, until it was double nerfed. In today's timeline of destruction, let us look back and remember the time of A Realm Reborn's dungeon menace. A menace that forced the creation of multiple Reddit posts, guides, and videos. The difficulty wall that was quite literally a wall. The pre-nerf demon wall of Ampador Keep. Final Fantasy XIV had a different mentality towards dungeon difficulty in A Realm Reborn. In the A Look Back 5 Years of Final Fantasy XIV Part 1 A Realm Reborn synopsis, the developers state that the intention of dungeons was for parties to fail 2 to 3 times before being able to complete them. Additionally, it's no surprise that the chap who designed Ampador Keep was also the designer behind the first Ultimate of Final Fantasy XIV, Kenji Sudo. To reach Demon Wall, you first had to deal with a range of demonic monster packs, including the first boss, Pyscheflayer. What's interesting about dungeons from this time is that there was no child safety gate every 6 monsters to stop you from pulling. You could, if you wanted to, pull all the way up to the first boss gate, but also you couldn't mass pull these monsters and melt them down with ease like they're part of the putty patrollers from Power Rangers, like every dungeon right now. No, mass pulling these monsters always resulted in you getting utterly destroyed, and Square Enix were happy for you to make mistakes like this in order to learn from your failures. Why was this? Well, Ampador Keep had jobber mobs such as the Recluse Hippogriffs, Soul Collectors, and Red Robe Disciples. But the problem was the Dullahans. These Dullahans were tactically placed around Ampador Keep as patrols, and boy did they hit hard. Pulling these with other monsters always brought a huge risk of getting destroyed, so you had to deal with the Dullahans on their own before you could take on some of the more forgiving monsters in smaller packs. To illustrate this, we went back and did Ampador Keep on minimum eye level, and after being conditioned to closing our eyes and hitting 2 buttons to melt monsters down, we were pleasantly surprised to be reminded about just how much these dungeons did not give a shit if they destroyed you.
Oh no! World of Warcraft time! World of Warcraft time! Vada! No!
Okay, time to run.
It's kite it.
No!
Even with min eye level, that shit hurts so bad.
Fun tip, if you open the chest to the left of the courtyard just before reaching the first boss, you can get a demon brick companion. Ah yes, who's a cute little brick? Yes you are. Anyway, moving on. The first boss isn't a huge deal. You kill the priest, the Pyscheflayer appears and summons a giant golem, and then you kill the Pyscheflayer behind a pillar, thus line of sighting the giant golem AoE that incrementally appears as he's stomping around. This one was pretty straightforward. Next, you progress through the gauntlet of Dullahans and gargoyles, but remember, there's no child safety gate here to stop you from pulling too much until the next boss, so take it easy, otherwise you're going to get quacked.
Emergency! Emergency! Operation Home Gang Run Away! Whoa! Leg it, boys!
Whoa, this isn't very classic. You can't run away with home gang.
What? What do you mean?
After making it through the gauntlet, you are greeted by the grand entrance to the Demon Wall, inside an arena with a small platform, gaps either side where you can fall to your death, and blocking the path ahead? Yeah, that's Demon Wall. The boss that had to be nerfed 2 times due to its challenging mechanics that gated parties. The difficulty of Demon Wall spawned multiple guides over Reddit, MMORPG websites, and content creators. What's interesting is that a number of these guides were only for Demon Wall and not for the whole dungeon, which is a testament to how popular this boss had become in Final Fantasy XIV's community. You also have to remember that in A Realm Reborn, players were not as sharp as they are now with mechanics, so the general skill level of the community was much lower. Another factor that affected the success of downing Demon Wall was the class you played. For example, Bard's Limit Break in A Realm Reborn was a heal, so if you had 2 bards in the party, your chances of killing Demon Wall were pretty low as you had no access to a damage based limit break, which was a requirement to deal with this boss at lower item levels. Classes with positionals weren't as bad as having 2 bards, but these classes suffered from not being able to get their rear damage bonus due to the boss facing forward. Yes, there was no flankless boss design back in A Realm Reborn, it was the Wild West. But even with class setbacks, what was the main element that made this boss so difficult? What spawned the countless posts of guides, complaints, and cries for help? One word. Bees.
What is it? What is it? Oh, no, not the bees! Not the bees!
More specifically, Bloodlappers. You can find these nasty buggers in East Shroud. After the second set of repels and knockback mechanic cast by Demon Wall, 2 Bloodlapper ads would spawn either side of the platform, and they were nasty. These bees came in a pair, with the left one being classed as a tank bee and the right one a DPS bee. The DPS bee was the first priority, with groups often limit breaking it down. See why having 2 bards kinda sucked in this scenario? Yeah, it was rough. Once the DPS bee was dead, you could then focus on the tank bee. These bees would drop an AoE underneath them called Thunderstorm, which on a short platform, combined with Demon Wall's Ivan Ooze floor AoE and knockback repel, made it pretty difficult to deal with. You could technically interrupt the Thunderstorm AoE from one of the bees, but relying on a 2013 Final Fantasy XIV player to interrupt was like asking a Lalafell to give you a high five. The difficulty came with dealing with the bees whilst dodging the ongoing mechanics from the Demon Wall and the lack of horizontal space to dodge. When you combine these elements with a random party, random classes and random item levels, which by the way, lower item levels were severely different to the current state of Final Fantasy XIV. The gain of item level was so huge that a DPS with slightly higher item level than a tank would make it difficult for the tank to hold aggro. So yeah, combine that with the boss itself and you have a situation where the most of the community are forming support groups on Reddit to deal with the sheer PTSD that this boss caused. After Demon Wall executed Order 66 on the community, Square Enix had to step in to save the day. 2 rounds of nerfs came to Amdapor Keep. Firstly, the Bloodlappers were removed. Not weakened, no, straight up removed. Dealing with 2 ads and a stationary boss that could only move forward every 30 seconds was too difficult for the average player to handle in the eyes of the developer, so out they went. On a side note, they also nerfed the potency of Imminent Catastrophe, which is hilarious because this move literally has a 20-second cast timer for you to hide behind the pillar. You should die in 1 hit if you get hit by this. It did not need to be nerfed, come on now. In the second batch of nerfs, general enemy limit was reduced and the HP of strength of various monsters was also reduced. Hey you, wanna know a secret? Not even Final Fantasy XIV veterans know this. But if you killed the Demon Wall at the time without using the limit break on the DPSB, a secret message on the wall appears on the right from the developers. Look, you might be able to see it. Beautiful. The last boss, whilst not as difficult as Demon Wall, was still very fun to do, including line of sight mechanics, ad management and tail cleaves. Tail cleaves were great for griefing your friends.
No, don't do that.
I see what you're trying to do, which is why I'm moving.
What? I'm keeping the boss on its toes.
Amdapor Keep offered a challenge for the Final Fantasy XIV community. You couldn't close your eyes, pull wall to wall, hit 2 buttons to melt monsters down. You had to choose what you pulled, use interrupts, and when possible, avoid packs if they weren't necessary to kill. But that concludes today's timeline of destruction. Check out the playlist for more episodes and surprise to the channel. Yeah, surprise me by subscribing. For now, I am out.
Always someone in a pub. They'd be like, "Let's get through the 2 Dullahans," and they'd fucking pull the room.
A few moments later.
Gladiators. Oh shit!
Oh, nice job.
Oh man, look at these randoms pulling the freaking Dullahans.
Listen, I thought it was sight. Okay, I forgot they didn't have sight back in these days. Let's see you do it, Harold, huh? Come on.
Okay.
Come back and do it again.
You come back and do it again.